We have a very interesting session. Like everyone across the industry has been talking about data governance, and there are different thought processes, thinkings around it. Uh, One of the interesting things which is also triggering in is like a lot of analytics, Gen AI, and how does data governance play a role. So welcome to this interesting session. It's called Bring Your Data to Life with Informatica's Data Governance. Um, as organizations are transform their and scale their data business, a foundation of trusted data is required to address key business priorities dynamic environment. And we are all coming from data space have been seeing that there's a lot of siloed operations. Um, about 50% of the CDOs have put data governance as their priority because they do want to leverage and harness the values of data that comes with it. So in this session, we have Amy Horowitz. She's a VP and leader from the data governance practice for Informatica. She'll be walking us through like what are the challenges, what are the approaches, how in the space of data governance, how we can rethink and adopt better practices to harness this value. A little about Amy. She is over 20 years in leadership roles in technology. She's very passionate about data governance, so we are all looking forward to hear from her. And welcome, Amy. A bit of a housekeeping here. We'll go through the presentation, maybe 40, 45 minutes, and then open it up for questions. We have a lot of folks joining online also, so I'll sort of mediate the question from which we get from online as well.
Great.
So over to you, Amy. Welcome.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Amy Horowitz. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for the great introduction. So first of all, what an amazing time to be part of a data management organization. With economics, issues happening today, data is the key to making great business decisions. And something that I also want to mention, I grew up in IT, so I'm from Austin. If you can't tell, big hair, big accent. I've got a little bit of a twang, but I'm from Austin, Texas, and I grew up at Dell. I was at AMD for 7 years and spent some time at Rackspace as well. So I've seen the infrastructure, architecture, and engineering side in IT as well. So some of the things I want to cover here, first of all, this slide, I'm going to leave this up for a few seconds. Some of the things I'm going to cover could potentially change. So this is our safe harbor slide. So I'll leave this up just to review for a quick second before I move forward. And I'm going to jump right in. So let's talk about where we are today in the data management space. So we've heard a lot about digital transformation, scaling our businesses. What does that really mean? Well, for years we talked about this, and what's happening today is it's actually happened. So now all of a sudden we have this influx of data, we have this influx of metadata, and we are quickly realizing that organizations really need to go to the digital space. We also know that trust is a critical piece of really moving to a digital organization. And more importantly, I think we heard this earlier, we did a CDO survey of over 600 CDOs, and guess what they said? Data governance is top of mind. It's not just anymore about getting data into IT and IT owning the data. It's more about trusting data, enabling your business users, and more importantly, how can we regulate what we have in-house? So let's talk about this. I'm sure you are aware of this, but what's interesting about data governance and about data management is that it spans all organizations. It's not just technology anymore. The first industrial company that we're talking about is Valmont Industries. So they're part of agriculture and have done a really great job with data governance. So they leverage our data governance to focus on customers, understanding what their customers are doing, how they're doing it. Also, metrics that matter. Has anybody heard the term metrics that matter? Anybody? Yeah, metrics that matter from a CFO perspective, but also from a business perspective, right? This is what Valmont leverages our data governance for. A real estate firm, so they use our IDMC, which you'll hear me talk about. Charlie, my esteemed colleague, will be up here in a second to show a demo, but IDMC is the Informatica Data Management Cloud. This organization leverages our IDMC platform to run millions of transactions a day with zero infrastructure. So imagine what your team is doing today from an ETL or ingest perspective, being able to leverage data governance and our platform to run these transactions without having a person actually do it. And then finally, my favorite, a really great chocolate company that I'm not going to mention their name, but they leverage our platform as well from a customer perspective, but more importantly, to understand their pipelines, to understand what the customers need, to also understand their supply chain. So when things are low, they leverage our platform to do that. So now what? Let's take a step back down memory lane for a second. For those of you that have been around data governance for a while, governance was really focused on risk and compliance. This was really about understanding when HIPAA came out, when SOX came out. I will tell you this, and I mentioned this, and if anybody repeats this, I will deny it. But when I failed my internal audits in IT, it was because I could not report on SOX. Sarbanes-Oxley killed me. It was a really tough thing for me to have to go to my leadership and say, I don't really know what's happening here. Governance at the time, back in the day, was really built to do this. And so what we've come to find out is that it was fine back then, right? Governance was built to just support regulatory internal policies, or to be able to report on that to the board, or to be able to report on that internally, or to be able to report to internal audit. And now we've moved past that. What we've really moved past is the mission of data governance is really to create a simpler way to support regulatory and mandates internal policies. However, we were just getting started. So now what we've seen from an industry perspective is with this growth of massive data, this new role of a CDO came into play. This new role of a data product manager came into play. A data steward, a data architect, a data scientist. All of these titles from a market perspective started coming into play. And so what does that mean? You guys as CDOs know the massive growth has really caused a change in direction for what we're doing. So expanding the vision, what we talk about data democratization is IT doesn't own the data anymore. Not that they ever really did. We didn't ever really own the data. But now it's really important that you enable the business users. And that's what we're seeing today. So you'll hear Charlie and I both talk about being able to find, understand, access, and trust your data. So imagine, I'm going to talk about metrics that matter here for a second. I'm the CFO of an organization, and I have to report to the board every quarter the number of patients that I have. And Charlie comes to me and says, Amy, we have 5,000 patients. Dharma comes to me and says, Amy, we have 50 patients. Who do I trust? Who do I trust? And so being able to understand where that data comes from, not only from a lineage perspective, but me as a non-technical user, I don't need the details. I just need to know what report I'm supposed to use, that I can trust it and that I know where it is. That's our vision of really bringing data consumers and producers together. That data democratization is critical for businesses today. What about analytics? Here we go. So data analytics with governing and sharing as well. So now we have the risk and compliance, we have governance together. The goal of this, as I mentioned before, is the data sharing, is to really get the data in the right hands at the right time to the right people. That term data intelligence was coined. Everybody hear data intelligence? It's like if you're in data bingo, this is going to be the first question that's asked. Because data intelligence really is about making sure you have the right data in the right hands at the right time. And so for us, what was critical is we started in the governance space with risk and compliance, but now it's about going down the analytics, and data sharing as well. So giving insights to the business. I don't need to open a ticket with Remedy. I'm dating myself here. Anybody use Remedy still? Yeah, so I'm dating myself here, but back in the day when my team needed data, what did we do? Went to our help desk, opened a trouble ticket in Remedy, and waited 3 or 4 weeks to get a data set. And today, from a governance perspective, I'm supposed to enable my teams to go to market faster. And in order for me to do that, that's how I do it. So we have the ability to help with that as well. All right. So what's next? So what do we see from a market perspective? Excuse me. Having a modern data governance plan, what does that mean? Everybody knows data governance was here for regulatory compliance. We've grown so much in this space. So number one, trust is critical. Trust is critical. Giving somebody wrong data to make business decisions does not help anyone, does it? It's almost career limiting. So we want to make sure that we don't do that. Persona-aligned views on health. So this is also critical. I talked about this role of a data scientist. I talked about a data steward. Let me just tell you, I lost my technical stuff when I left IT. I'm just going to be first to admit it. I don't need to be in the catalog. Charlie, on the other hand, could be in the catalog. I need to have a great, beautiful front end that I know that I can go and find the data that I need to make the right decisions. If I don't trust that, Again, why am I going to send this up to my board and say we have 500 patients when really we have 50? So it's critical at this point in the game that not only do the data scientists and technical folks and the business users are probably using the same data, but have a different lens on it. And more importantly, as we hire more business analysts within lines of business, how are we enabling them to make the right decisions? And then finally, data pipelines for analytics and AI. So you guys probably heard this in the keynote, and that was around generative AI. Did everybody get to hear the keynote? They really focused on it for data management, right? The key for us in the market and the market perspective we have is really automation. Automation, making things go faster, but more importantly, taking the human element out of it, letting the human element, focus on above the line projects to drive your business faster. Having automation and analytics really help drive your business from an automated perspective. Okay, excuse me. So we talked a little bit about AI. Let's talk about the view on trust. So observability. That's also another bingo term if you're playing data governance bingo. Observability is something that comes in. Ultimately, data observability for us in the governance space is being able to really articulate problems with data quality before it happens, be able to solve those problems before it really becomes an issue. So understanding the quality, looking at a holistic view of where we are, and being able to resolve any issues before they happen. So what you see here is these are just kind of the steps that we see from an Informatica perspective, but more importantly, the market is going this way. In our opinion, having data governance with observability is critical and key to having a true data governance plan. Okay, so back to modern data governance. So we talked about this. Our POV is that you've got to have this modern data governance approach. So again, regulatory compliance was fine. But now businesses require data and analytics to drive their business faster, to make better business decisions. We think that you have to have 3 different components. The first is risk and compliance, which we've talked about. So we still need this. There's still a need, and don't take this the wrong way, but we still need this stuff. Even though it's been around for a long time, we still need this. We also need to open data for automation for the business users. I keep harping on the business users. We need to enable those folks to make better business decisions. And then finally, to observe it, to really optimize availability, to know that when data issues are happening before they happen, resolve them, fix them, and then go forward. Okay, so Claire. Let me introduce you to Claire. So Claire is one of my best friends. Claire is our analytics engine to really help us drive an AI approach. Pardon me. So what Claire does, first of all, Claire is built throughout our platform. So by the way, when AI and ML first came out, everybody said we have AI and ML. Every organization said that, right? And in fact, it was really kind of fuzzy matching at the time. Today, this is a true AI engine built on about 43 petabytes of metadata. We run about 53 trillion, is that right, Dharma? 53 trillion transactions through Claire. It's amazing. So the intent of automation, what does this mean? Again, this goes back to the point that I mentioned earlier. This is about really ensuring auto classification is done. So imagine you have a data scientist or an analyst that's spending the time classifying data assets. Get them out of that business. Let Claire do that automatically. It's also about automated data quality rules. So again, coming up to the observability piece, we realize that there's a problem with the data quality. Having Claire go in and automatically create data rules, quality rules that could help solve this in the future. We have spent a ton of time focusing on Claire. The other thing I'm not sure you saw in the news, but Informatica recently acquired Privitar. Did anybody see that? This is a huge move for us. So what Privitar does is it's really focused on data access, data privacy, and policy management, which really brings the market expertise back into Informatica for us. So this is partly to enhance our data governance and catalog opportunities here. So generative AI is everywhere, but Claire, by the way, she gets smarter as you leverage her. So the more and more you leverage these auto classifications, the smarter she becomes within your organization. Okay, so what about predictive data intelligence? Our AI-powered predictive data intelligence is also built in. So essentially, consumption is a big piece for us from a data governance perspective. Informatica, we really focus on on the consumption side of data governance. So think about this. If I had a way to produce a beautiful front end that I can shop for the data I need, this is called Marketplace at Informatica, but to be able to shop for the data I need, but the Marketplace also can tell me who used the data set, how long they used it, and what they requested. So the consumption patterns then become known by Claire, and she's smart enough to recommend next known product is the best way to look at it, or next best data set that you could leverage. So this predictive data intelligence is really critical to what we do. The spinning wheel kind of shows the 3 different main areas. The first one is collaboration, metadata catalog, and then marketplace. All of that is also tied in with our data delivery engine. So imagine being able to go to this marketplace and Samantha comes in and says, I need the data set for customer. Okay, well that's great, but what exactly do you need? Based on my role and my persona, Sam can see this data set, with customer in it, but more importantly, she then has access to it. The one thing that I forgot to mention, that I failed to mention about PDI, or Predictive Data Intelligence in Claire, is that we just made this amazing announcement. For those of you that have not heard of Informatica World, that's our big user conference, and it was just in Vegas in May. It was in May. Claire, in H2, remember the safe harbor slide I all mentioned? Everybody read that? Could potentially change. But we have something coming out called Claire GPT. So yes, we OEM'd with OpenAI, and the ability to give our end users to do natural language query is huge. Again, somebody like me, I do not need to be in the catalog. I am not technical, I left it behind, but I need to go in and find a data set that has the number of patients in it. I can type natural language query, hey, teach me how to do this, and it will spit out what I need based on roles and responsibilities and personas, but that's coming and that's being built in. So know that predictive data intelligence in Claire is a true game changer in the data governance space for us. Okay, so here is one of my favorite slides. So our modern data governance and observability portfolio has 3 integrated but focused pieces. The first one is our governance and catalog. We've talked about this, right? To be able to really govern your assets, understand where they are, understand profiling, but more importantly, have an overall view into what you have in your organization from a metadata perspective. The second one is data marketplace. So critical to share your data with your business users. But by the way, I keep saying business users, but also technical users. They have the ability to go into marketplace as well. It doesn't just have to be the business, but everybody. With generative AI, again, being able to publish statistics, policies, data sets, whatever you need, this is a great front end to do this. We can also track and fulfill data requests. So the next question everybody always asks me, do you integrate with ServiceNow? Yes, we do. So we want customers to be able to leverage the tools that they're used to today. Marketplace also does this. And then finally, our last one is data quality and observability. So I mentioned this before. My opinion, and frankly the market view, is that without data quality, you have okay data governance. But it's better to have it all integrated together. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about Informatica. I've talked a lot about the market perspective, but this is my favorite slide also that I present when I'm talking to customers. Think about where we are today. By the way, I didn't mention this, but I've spent some time at some other organizations, and I am here, number one, the people are awesome, but number 2, we are the only ones in the market that can really do what we say we're going to do. So think about this from a technical perspective, from ingest, right? So from ETL all the way to golden record. Right, so I ingest, I do my transformations, I govern that data, and then I have a golden record, right? I can understand and master the customer domain, supplier domain, product domain. We're the only platform that can really do that. And so what I want you to notice here is that you see this piece called Claire that goes throughout the middle. Remember I talked about Claire, she's the great AI platform, but the ability to leverage Claire throughout our platform is critical because it's not just in governance that you can leverage that. The other piece I want to share here is that when Charlie and I talk about this, when you ingest into our platform, let's say you start with data quality. You come to Charlie and me and you say, hey, listen, we want to start with quality. Great, you can start with quality. Once you ingest that metadata in there, you can leverage it throughout the platform. So do the heavy lifting once, scan your resources, get that metadata, and then you can leverage that throughout our platform. The last thing that I will say about this is our licensing model. I always hear, by the way, I've been here a year, And people come to me and say, oh, Informatica. Yeah, we know who you are. You are so expensive. Like, you're so expensive. And that's really not the case. We have done a ton of market research. We have a new licensing model that's very flexible. It's truly consumption-based, which means you come to Charlie and me and say, hey, I want to start with quality. I want to start with quality up here. And then you come to me and say, I've changed my mind. I've changed my mind. I want to start with marketplace. Guess what? You own entitlements to do that. You literally call your customer success manager and you turn it on. So you have the right to do that. Now, we will scope you. We will go through a standard process. We don't just, it's not all or nothing, but we have the ability to do that. So our platform is meant to be integrated. So you have multiple places to start with this, which leads me to my next slide. So from a market perspective, there are multiple ways to find value with data governance, right? With data management in general. So I talked about this before. You might have MDM and quality already in play. Great. But now it's time to take it to the next level and have governance around your policies. You might have another catalog already enabled. Okay, fine. But the market perspective is you might just be cataloging that stuff. And by the way, we see this with a lot of ecosystem partners. You know, the Databricks, the Snowflakes, they have their own catalog, and that is great. They fit a specific use case. Where other markets see this is that you can have a catalog of catalogs. So sitting on top of that, leveraging that metadata, bringing it in, and then having the full platform capability that I showed earlier. So there are multiple ways to drive value when it comes to data governance and data management. Now, let's talk about the next slide. Let's talk about some great couples. Sonny and Cher, right? J-Lo and Ben Affleck. Well, now let's talk about MDM and data governance. They are better together. So I truly believe that in order for you to have a true understanding of your master data, you must have data governance and MDM together. And quality sprinkled throughout that is really critical as well. So what this does, this slide really walks you through how you can create an intelligent master data solution, So imagine this governed master data customer. I'll give you an example. If I go into a tool shop in Austin and I buy a hammer, and I go in, this is a true story, I'm not gonna tell you who it is. And I buy a hammer. And I go into New Jersey and I buy a hammer. They do not see me as Amy Horowitz as one record. They see me as Amy Horowitz in New Jersey and in Texas. And so what we're working on with this customer is to bring that master data together, but more importantly, that data set can then be served up through generative AI through our marketplace. So you have the ability to leverage the data that you need based on your persona. And finally, this is my last slide. I've got a couple of others after Charlie, but I just want to share, as we wrap up, so really enabling our customers to gain the intelligence and insights that they need. It's all about automation. I talk about this too. Sam has heard this multiple times. When I'm in front of a customer and I'm pitching, and I'm air quoting for those of you remotely, I'm air quoting here, pitching data governance, the first thing that I talk about is ROI on time. If you ask your data stewards or somebody in the organization that's new, let's say that you just started today, and you came up to me and said, I don't know what to do. And I say, listen, Melissa, can you find the definition of customer lifetime value? You're gonna pick up the phone, you're gonna send a Teams message or a Slack message, you're gonna walk around to somebody's cube, you're gonna fly into town. That time that it takes you to do that is a true ROI you can judge. Imagine how much time you could save with AI, with being able to serve that data set up into marketplace and enabling self-service analytics for your end users. It is a game changer. Ask somebody to track their time. It's expensive. It is expensive, right? It's expensive. So with that, I want to call out one more thing. So I mentioned Informatica World that just happened, our big user group. By the way, it's not a sales conference. I'm not there to sell you anything. Like, I'm not going to say, here, sign this contract. It's more about, again, more market perspective, but it's also hearing from other customers in your space where you can meet peers. You can hear what other market perspectives look like outside of data governance, but it's an opportunity for you to meet your peers and mingle. We have one coming up in Chicago in October and one in Toronto. So if you can't make Chicago, we'd love to see you in Toronto. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my esteemed colleague, Mr. Charlie Hughes. So Charlie has been at Informatica for 13 or 15? 13 years. He is our technical expert. Not only that, but he has the best stories because, by the way, my team are all practitioners. So they've been you. So now they're in a role to really help sell and evangelize data governance. So all you.
Thank you very much, Amy.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate it. So we had hoped to actually give you a live demonstration today, but as I'm sure you saw at other sessions, that wasn't possible. But we have assembled kind of a slide deck that looks like a real demo. I embedded a little red dot to show where I would actually click, but this slide represents the Intelligent Data Management Cloud platform that Amy had mentioned. I really like to think of it as an application that provides all the capabilities to the various personas involved in creating and consuming data products, right? So we have everything from the technical tools like data integration, API development, API management, governance for folks like yourselves, folks involved in privacy initiatives, things of that sort, data profiling, quality for maybe quality stewards, and then last but not least, the data marketplace, which is sort of that last mile of delivery, right? So we're going to start out of the data marketplace. I'm going to take on the persona of, let's say, a data steward in my marketing organization that's tasked with a new project. So I need some data to drive a dashboard or a report, and it's really focused around sales data. So here on our home page for our marketplace, you can think of this as really a portal, self-service shopping-like portal where data product owners can publish their data or advertise it, if you will. Data consumers can come in and do sort of self-service shopping like you would do in Amazon, right, or in a bookstore of some sort. So on the first line there, we see kind of our best sellers or our new releases. And then underneath it, we have the different sections of the different bookshelves where we organize the different data products. It can be hierarchical. You would organize this yourself. So we can see within this particular demo environment, we have 14 categories. We have 128 different data products that we've published, about 182 orders, and 122 of those orders have been fulfilled so far. So we're tracking all this. We're doing it, sharing data in a governed fashion. So I could start to browse. I could go into that sales category, but in my case, I'm going to go to the search. I put in global. I could start to filter this using some of the filter criteria, perhaps terms of use. I want something that's not very restrictive, or perhaps a particular delivery mechanism. Maybe I want something in Snowflake or via an API. But I see there's only 7 products there, so not too much to peruse through. I'm not going to filter. I'm going to highlight one of those rows. I'm going to hover over, and I can get a quick glimpse at the different data assets available there. I see there are 2 different data sets that make up this data product. One of them has a little bit of a data quality issue. For now, I'm going to ignore that. But I'm going to add this to my comparison sheet. There's a few other data sets that interest me, or a few other data products, excuse me. So I'm going to add them all to my comparison sheet. And I'm going to bring them together so I can look at those side by side and try and decide which one best suits my needs. As I look at these, I can see they all have the same data owner. I see they're all part of the same category, actually 2 out of 3. But I can see only one of them has a certified use. So it looks like the data owner took a little bit more care. I also see it's got a 5-star rating. And then as I look down to the different data assets, I see there's actually store data within there. And if that's important to my analysis, maybe I want to look at purchases by store. That's the one I want to drill down on. I go ahead and select that particular data product. You can see there's a number of different views through which I can look at this data product. Initially, I'm on the summary screen. And I can see that, again, it's certified for analytics use. I can see the default delivery mechanism is automated, so that means I can get it pretty quick. This might be something I'm really interested in. I can also see that there's 3 different data assets. One of them looks like there's a slight data quality problem. Perhaps that's where I want to navigate next. So I'll go look at those different data assets. Now I can see those 3 rows that represent these data assets. They're all assets within Snowflake. If that's my primary analytics repository, that might be valuable to me, right? But I can see that column that says CDGC. That's our descriptive source, our cloud data governance and catalog solution. So it looks like we captured all this metadata in CDGC. We curated it. The data owner certified it and then published it here into our marketplace. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that that's not a prerequisite to using the marketplace. While there is integration that facilitates bringing that metadata in a bit easier, if you're using other solutions like Excel or competing products, You can publish your metadata into the marketplace via APIs or via bulk uploads, right? Now, okay, I can see those different data assets. At this point, I'm interested in the terms of use. So I'm going to go to that tab, and we can see we support 3 different types of terms of use. A couple of them are controlled and restricted, which might concern you a little bit, but I see this particular data product has only accessible terms of use. So there's an anonymized terms of use. There's something that tells me that we've reviewed and confirmed that we can't identify individuals, and also internal use. Well, my report is for internal use, so everything looks okay. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and check it out. I'm going to try and gain access to this. So I go to the checkout button. This is my input form where I can add different information that's going to go to the data owner to confirm this and give me access to it, right? In this case, I'm a common user, so I'm just going to reuse the input that I put in last time I requested some data. Let's see. Delivery target, I'm going to select that automated Snowflake delivery. I could add additional commentary if I cared to. And then on this next screen, this is where we prompt the user with, again, those usage policies. If I had a more restrictive usage policy, I'd have a checkbox there that I would have to literally check and confirm. And of course, we track all this for governance purposes that I have confirmed I'm going to abide by those policies. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and submit the order. Now, under normal circumstances, this would trigger a workflow that delivers a ticket or a task to the data product owner, who's going to accept, reject, or return it for more information. Once they accept it, goes on to the technical owner, who would then fulfill that request. And that can take various forms. Could be just providing access to an existing endpoint, could be pushing the data. We're not imposing any particular fulfillment mechanism on you. If you already have those in place, great. If you don't, we have capabilities within the rest of the platform, those other services, to deliver that data. I'm going to go ahead and look at my order. In this case, because we didn't have any restrictive policies, we've automated this process. We've bypassed that manual review and approval, that manual delivery, and we've automated the entire delivery kind of chain. If you have other systems that partake in this process right now, like ServiceNow or Jira, this is fully exposed via APIs. So you can wrap this around your current process, and this submission can simply trigger a ticket within some other system if that's your preference. So that, in a nutshell, is really the marketplace and the process of requesting and gaining access to data. But I now want to take a step back and show you how this data got into the marketplace. So I'm going back to my comparison sheet, and you can see I look at my different data assets down there. If I were to click on one of those assets, in this case I'm clicking on one of those views, because this metadata came in from our Cloud Data Governance and Catalog service, we're launching that service, we're bringing me directly to that particular asset. I can see this asset is a view. I can see kind of the breadcrumb trail of the Snowflake database and schema from which it came. I see there's a little icon there that indicates that it's certified. And on the top, I can also see some rating information. So we have kind of crowdsourced collaboration capabilities where you can rate, review, ask questions, and we capture all that. I can see the different stakeholders and the description. Frankly, that description's pretty poor. I would think one of the stakeholders would have put something more meaningful in there. But you can also see we captured the catalog source definition that was embedded in Snowflake. We can automatically associate glossary terms to this technical metadata. And you can see we assigned an entity classification of PII to this. So all this was done automatically. I also look at the quality score. Now in this case, this is a view, so that quality score is an aggregation of all the quality measurements we're making to each column within that view. So that gives me a good sense of the trustworthiness of that data, right? Another element of trustworthiness is understanding where it came from. So maybe I want to go to lineage next, and fortunately we have a little tab there that I can click. Now when we initially present lineage, we try and do it in a fairly simplified view where we show you the focal asset, first upstream and first downstream hop. But you can see there's numerous additional hops that I could expand if I wanted to see, cradle to grave style lineage. In this case, this particular view, which is highlighted, I can see the upstream tables within Snowflake that consist of that view, and I could actually look at the code if I wanted to see the SQL there. But in this case, I hover over it and I get a quick preview. Or maybe I want to go back and look at one of the upstream data assets that contributes to it. And again, I can see this product data table that feeds into that view. It's likewise a certified asset. Right now, we're looking at object level lineage, right? Data, we call data set level lineage. If I cared to, I could drill down to the data element level lineage. It's often important when you're looking to do things like impact analysis. Maybe you're going to change the type of a column or something of that sort. But in this case, what I want to show you next is something we call overlays. So I can start to overlay business context on top of this lineage diagram. If I cared about the policies and the processes that these different assets need to adhere to or support, those connections exist, right? But in this case, I'm going to overlay the data quality. Maybe I want to understand not only the data quality of this particular asset, but is the data quality improving or degrading as it flows across this lineage diagram? So we're looking at the overall lineage, but I can hover over and I can look at the quality. I can look at the data quality across different dimensions if I care to. So in this case, it looks like completeness is probably the weakest, and maybe I would drill down on that. Or maybe I'd open a ticket against this item so that one of the stakeholders is prompted to investigate this, right? So lineage, certainly important, especially when you look at it from a technical perspective in terms of understanding impact analysis if I'm making changes. But that's technical impact analysis. What about business impact analysis, right? If I'm going to make a change to some type of data, I might want to know what business processes it supports so I can inform the folks who rely on that process and consult with them and make sure it's okay, right? Well, I can go to my relationships tab to understand not only the technical relationships, such as the view columns that this contains, but also some of the business relationships. So in this case, we have some policies. This is where those policies came in the marketplace. It was all inherited as we brought it in. But here I can see an anonymized policy, and I can hover over to get a little bit more detail, or I could drill down on it and open that up as an asset within the Cloud Data Governance Catalog solution. All right, so from that perspective, we were looking at a data product. We drilled into one of the data assets, and then we want to get a little bit more information than what we provide in the marketplace. So we launched Data Governance and Catalog, which gives us deeper information like lineage. What if I were to go into Data Governance and Catalog as my starting point? What would that look like? Well, here I go to my home page, and we could see a little bit of a busy dashboard. So the solution allows you to define dashboards for different roles. So you can have their default dashboards, but everybody can create their own widgets within those dashboards to surface whatever information is most important to their particular role. So of course, this is a demo environment. This is just to give you a sense of what the solution contains. Here we see a widget with our business assets. That's the business metadata that's defined by humans, right? The governance team, the business teams that are collaborating to define your business glossary, your taxonomy, your policies, your processes. If that already exists, we can bulk import that. But once it's within the tool, you want to leverage capabilities like workflow to collaboratively evolve this content. Next to that, we have the technical metadata. This is the metadata we harvest automatically by scanning different data environments, whether it's file systems, cloud storage, applications, databases, BI tools. We collect all this information by scanning it. We bring in the technical metadata. We can profile that as we do it, so we can show you profiling statistics, but then we can also do automation capabilities that Amy alluded to via Claire. So we can automatically associate terms within your business glossary with that technical metadata. We can automatically classify it. We saw that PII entity classification, and that can likewise drive data quality automation. So you can define standard data quality rules associated with a business term. Every time we find an instance of that data and we associate the business term, we run the data quality rule and we measure it. So you don't have to go hunt and peck and find every instance of a particular type of data, right? So in addition to having my own personal dashboard, I can share dashboards for other purposes across my team. So in this case, we have a data quality dashboard. One of the widgets I like here is a widget that's surfacing the critical data elements in my environment that are below a particular data quality threshold. So when you define those data quality rules, you can customize what's fit for purpose. And if we're measuring that and it falls below a particular threshold, we can trigger an alarm, send a ticket to a stakeholder. or you can surface it here on your dashboard and take some sort of action. And then lastly, we have a user adoption dashboard where we might be monitoring things like our growth in user activity, our growth in technical metadata development, our growth in certification, things of that sort. So this is really intended to be sort of the movie preview type demo. If any of this really strikes you, feel free to stop by our table out front, and we can connect you with folks who can go deeper, talk about your particular use cases, how you might leverage the tool, and give you the full feature demonstration. So anyway, I think you had some slides now, right, Amy?
I'm going to wrap up. Thank you.
Certainly.
All right. So with that, I just wanted to finalize and say, our modern data governance is scale. Scale is critical. We talked about governance. We talked about being able to share data with the business and then observability. A simplified trust agent is really where we see the market going. Okay, so a couple of things. At our booth, I wanted to share this because this is really critical. We always get questions. By the way, one thing I didn't talk about with data governance, you can quote me on this. Data governance is squishy. There is I'm not selling you a chair or a table, right? I'm selling you a vision. I'm selling you a framework. We're working together to figure out a quick time to value. So what we've done from a market perspective is we have a couple of white papers that we absolutely recommend everybody. The first one you can download or stop by our table. This is the 5 essential business value metrics to build a case for data governance. I get this all the time. Amy, I know I need this. I just don't know where to start. I need help building a business case. We can help you do that. But from a strategic perspective, this is a great white paper. The second one is a data strategy playbook. So this is also another great thing. There are great nuggets in there. It's not, by the way, it's not specific about Informatica. This is a market perspective. And it helps CDOs and helps analysts understand how they can start and focus on building a great data strategy. All right. So with that, thank you. There is a call to action. We do have a webinar also coming up with CDOs to talk about the business of data governance and where we're going. But I encourage you to stop by our table. And if you have any questions, we're here. Thank you for your time. All right.
Thank you, Amy and Charlie. A great presentation showcasing what new capabilities Informatica is bringing to the market. One question, there's a lot of, in multiple sessions we have been talking about data products, and one of the topics that comes up often in the CDO discussions are data quality is a metrics defined by the consumer because it's all about fit to purpose. You did talk about Claire and Claire's ability to do a lot of data quality. So how does Claire, or what is the secret sauce in terms of mechanics that Claire has that it is able to figure out what is the expectation from the consumers are for data quality? And how does it go, just one more, and how does it go beyond the basics of completeness of data, or like if a particular field has all 5 digits, probably if there is few with 4, there is a missing digit. So how do you handle that? How do you do that?
Certainly. So I talked about data quality automation when the rules already exist, right? You create rules, or you use some of our out-of-the-box rules. You associate them with the business term. We basically replicate the rules that already exist. We also have capabilities within our profiling service where you can point at specific data, a table, a file. It'll profile, it'll give you the shape of the data, but it'll also recommend new rules based on the shape, maybe based on distributions of data that you can then select or reject to apply, and it'll automatically create those rules for you. You can then leverage those rules within glossary terms or within specific data elements if you care. So that's one example of Claire. Another example of Claire is within our governance tool, a steward might say, I need this particular type of rule. I want to apply it to my business term so that it gets replicated, but I don't have data quality steward and I don't know how to write it. We have NLP processing where you can create that standard rule, we call it. You can type it in plain English and it will generate that rule for you. So there's a couple examples of Claire that going a little bit deeper, specific to data quality.
Thank you. I'll open the floor for questions.
Thank you for the great presentation. We are Informatica customers and have been for some time, but I love the concept of the marketplace. I think I'm a really big proponent of where that's heading for the entire industry in terms of how we think about our data. But I think one of the things that we often struggle with, just like to your point, right? There's a lot of this that is fluid and it's changing over time. What is your definition of a data product? I think in the Tom Davenport session just yesterday, he extended data product not just from the data, but all the way through to the analytics and the products that come from it and the continuum of it. But what does Informatica define when you talk about your data products?
Yeah. It is a data asset of varying sorts. So we have folks who start out with a library of reports, right? It's the end product, and that's what they start out with the marketplace. They then work backwards and they say, well, people want to create new products, new reports. Let's start with data sets, right? So it might be logical data sets, it might be physical data sets, files, tables, views. Likewise, we have people publishing models, right? A data product is a collection of related useful data assets. Could be pipelines for training data along with a model so that people aren't reinventing the wheel over and over again. And that's really the crux of the marketplace and the broad definition of, those are the examples that I've experienced. I don't know if you've experienced others, but I expect that to grow as the ecosystem grows.
I agree. I think it's a very broad term today. But to Charlie's point, for us, everything in the catalog is considered an asset. And that to me is also a data product. So yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. Thank you for being a customer, by the way. Yes.
So we have a question from online viewers. What principle should be in place to get the right data in right hands to be compliant?
I'm sorry, it was a question. So how do we get, can you repeat that? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
What principle should be in place to get the right data in the right hands to be compliant?
Good question. So what principle? I'm going to answer this in two ways. I think from a strategic perspective, I feel that you have to have support from the top down. So I feel like you have to have some type of executive leadership, could be at the director level, to say we're going to drive this product. Therefore, in order for me to get the right data in the right hands, I've got to start at the beginning. I don't know if you have anything to add.
I think there's a cultural shift that has to happen, right? So many organizations say they tried governance and it failed because they were very heavy-handed, right? People want to do the right thing. Why not put tools in front of them that are just guardrails that bring them in the right direction so they can do the right thing? You need enforcement, of course. You need things like data access management and so forth. But for the most part, you need to give them tools that are user-friendly, that aren't heavy-handed.
We also recognize in the industry that sometimes data stewards have day jobs, right? I think that's some of the things that a lot of leaders have to overcome, is that you have data stewards in lines of business that are in marketing or in finance or even in IT that also have responsibilities for a day job, right? So being a data steward sometimes is seen as heavy and they don't have time to do it. But I think having that executive buy-in overall can help drive that getting data in the right hands at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think.
Greg Cunin, also with UNC. I'd like to build on that actually, because you've been talking about data democratization, which is it's a term that resonates very well with our organization. We've got everybody is a data consumer. That's really my perspective. On the stewardship side, we have traditionally treated that as a special role. I would say all of our data stewards have day jobs, every single one of them. I don't think we have anyone spending more than 20% of their time on stewardship.
Right.
So how far do you think we could push the concept of democratization on the stewardship side of things? Could we get to the point where if I'm looking at a catalog and I'm a user and I know something about that data that nobody has bothered to capture in the metadata, that we could make that really erase the distinction in the same way that you talked about getting away from filing a ticket to someone in a special role?
Right.
Could we do that on the stewardship side?
I think you can. I'm going to go with Charlie's answer, though. It is very much a cultural shift. It's very much a cultural change, and it's not going to happen overnight. So I'm going to give you another example. I think I've talked to you before, by the way.
You have.
And I remember the conversation specifically, and this is very common. So I'm going to talk about an insurance company for a second. They, from the top down, have the definition of you will have a data steward in the line of business, and before any different insurance line gets put into the catalog, there has to be certain things that happen. There also is a need for any IT project. There's an intake form that the PMO office has that says, if you're going to do an IT project, is data governance around that? Do you have a data steward assigned, yes or no? Like, it's becoming part of the culture. I think that's an interesting conundrum, because some people that don't own the data might not know the actual impact that they will have if they change that data, or if they own that data, or if they go in and say, no, this is not what it's supposed to be used for. I'm on the fence.
Well, and it's not an absolute.
Yeah.
I think that we need guardrails.
Right.
We need. I do not want an analyst changing a policy
Right.
on what data can be used.
Right.
But if they've done the hard work to maybe understand the quality of an item or the definition of an item, and nobody's captured that, it occurs to me that there are areas where we might be able to even open up that stewardship role.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, there has to be some change management and guardrails around it that you mentioned. I do know of an organization that has a every Wednesday change management board. Like when I used to deploy Microsoft patches, we had to go through change management. It was the same thing from a data, adding something to the catalog. So before it was able to be done, there was a change management process that had to go through. Now, maybe it was a second set of eyes just to say yes or no, but you can do it. But again, it's a cultural shift. But yes.
I kind of like the notion of, like, we talk about citizen integrator, citizen data scientist, citizen steward, right? You need capabilities regardless of what tools you're implementing that provide structured collaboration, and those are the things that the stakeholders are going to do, right? But you need unstructured collaboration and crowdsourcing, like comments, questions, and so forth, that get captured for posterity, right? The next person has the same question. Why pick up the phone when you can press the button and see the dialogue that's occurred, right?
Yeah, I think if I tie, by the way, I didn't talk about this, but tying governance to your overall strategic business initiatives, whether it's ESG, for those of you that are in, global companies, or that it's coming here, right? Sustainability, whether it's going to market faster, understanding the number of patients you have, something of that nature, tying that back to the business initiative is critical. And I do think that it makes your going to market faster, right? You take that middleman out. Maybe there's an opportunity with a dashboard to say, this isn't meeting the criteria, can we go check it? There's something to do that. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, this just reminded me of this, is when we talked about generative AI, we get asked a lot, and I didn't cover this, but people say to us, like, with generative AI, how does that change your data governance? What does that mean? And so for us, what Dharma, Charlie and I agree on is that the framework of your data governance program stays the same. Nothing changes. It's just the AI piece is integrated into that. So you shouldn't have to uplift all of the work that you've done from a governance perspective to add this AI piece into it. So people are there are other tools and platforms that are coming out with all this AI stuff, and it's your governance guardrails should still be in place. So, anything else?
Yeah, I had a slightly different question. So there's a concept of active metadata which has been going around these days, right? Where from a user experience perspective, you really don't want people to navigate through multiple systems. So I go onto a report and I want to find the context of information related to, like, what's Informatica's view on kind of putting it as part of your product roadmap?
So we have active metadata features, and we have roadmap items to improve it. I mean, I like to think of active metadata as applying metadata to automation, AI, ML, whatever you want to call it, right? So some examples that we have are things like, within our governance tool, we're collecting all this metadata. It resides in a graph database, but it's not isolated. It's used throughout the platform. So for example, if a ETL developer drags a source into a palette, it's a graphical environment, but they're creating a data pipeline, that engine, that UI is going to look at our metadata repository, and if that asset has a relationship or a similarity to some other asset that's been prepared or participates in a pipeline, it's going to recommend the same transformations and say, last person who used something like this, aggregated it or joined it across this key. So that's just one example, but we're already investing in capabilities like this and we're exploring additional ones.
Remember the slide I showed with our platform that I might have said was the money slide because it's the one that I love the most? Remember how I said if you ingest that metadata, that active metadata throughout, you can leverage it throughout the platform? That's also what Charlie's talking about. So it's.
I was more talking from outside the platform.
Oh, from outside.
Kind of Power BI report,
Oh.
and I, see that, and
Yeah.
I want to see the context.
Got it.
Of the information, like
Sure.
customer lifetime value. I shouldn't have to navigate to another platform.
Right.
Absolutely. So everything's exposed via APIs. We're working on embedding mini APIs, hotkeys, and so forth within different applications to expose that quickly within the context that you want, so you don't have to launch a separate UI or separate web page.
Right. It's actually also the one we're also looking at is going to be a web widget. So it's not going to be specific to any, so it's going to be great. It's coming. Yeah. So anything else?
Anyone questions?
Thank you so much for your time today. I hope this was informative. We'll be at the booth, and I appreciate it. Have a good day.